Well, well, well. Guess who's starting volume 3 today? It's Romania Black, and I'm on the most amazing Don story of the ages as we know it. Scum Villain's self-saving system. I am in love with this story. I'm having so much fun with it. Volume 2 was a roller coaster. Just hills and bumps, and we went all over the place. And I was sitting there when I got done reading going, we still have 2 full volumes left. Insanity. So, I've got comments I want to talk about. We have a cover to look at that I have not peeked at yet. We have a trailer for season 2 that I want to look at now that Be Happy and the moderators have slowly reminded me of. We have a lot to get through today, so we need to just dive right in. But yes, I have had on this back shelf here for many months Scum Villain Self-Saving System. Volume 4, I have the special edition, and it's still in the shrink wrap. I haven't even taken it out yet because I haven't looked at the cover. I got it from the retailer, took it out of the box, and put it on the shelf, and was like, I'll get to it when I get to it. So I've just tentatively put the volume down here. I want to look at it here in a second. Special thanks to Reiki as well as Be Happy for Reiki for splitting up the chapters and letting me know, like, they've kept the chapter titles spoiler tagged as per usual, so we'll be able to explore those as we go, but they told me the page numbers for the chapter sets, so we'll talk about that in a second. And then Be Happy for the link to the season 2 trailer. They were like, hey, just so you know, you've pretty much gotten to the point where you could possibly watch the season 2 trailer that came out 2 years ago, and then, react to that. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. That would be a great thing to start out volume 3. Look back at the season 2 trailer. Maybe it'll sprinkle some magic juju in the air that will get season 2 created. That would be amazing. That'd be wonderful, but we're going to check it out here in a second. So thank you, Reiki. Thank you, Be Happy, for helping me to get things organized to start out volume 3. So yeah, as far as the cover goes, let's just pick this up. I just set it down, face down. I'm not reading the back cover until the very end of the volume or looking at who the characters are that they feature. I know they feature 3, but let's see what we get here. Oh, wow. Well, I'm gonna say a couple things about this cover. First of all, Lo Binghe looks in a much better mood than volume 2. He looks a lot softer there. Like, oh, hey, can we be friends and possibly lovers? And maybe I could go down on you later. And then Shen QingQiu looks so over it. He looks like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, he just looks so mad. Like, he would just rather be anywhere else. I'm curious who the people standing at the top are. It's a teacup. It's a teacup, which is fun because I do have tea today, so that's exciting. Interesting. Oh, it's a teacup. Curious. I wonder what's on the very front cover. Okay. It's people standing around. Is it gonna be like one of those situations where Shen QingQiu has to pose with Lo Binghe and pretend like he's in love, but then it's gonna become actual love, as we all have suspected? Oh my god! That's all. This is all I'm gonna look at. But oh no! Shen QingQiu riding on the sword with Lo Binghe. Oh no! And he's like, "Let me be your wings." And Shen QingQiu's like, "What is happening?" I'm already in love with this. Oh my god. Lo Binghe looks so happy. He looks so excited. And Shen QingQiu's like, I am so excited. If this volume is just the 2 of them getting closer and falling in love with one another, and then volume 4 is where we resolve everything, and there's like the secret plot twist and all that fun stuff, yes. Yes, we suffered through volume 2. I'm ready to get some rewards with volume 3. Usually volume 4 is the rewarding volume, but we'll wait and see how that goes. So, and then obviously we know things are not going to be easy for our boys because Liu Qingge is like, oh my god, Lo Binghe's taken off with my best buddy, who I may or may not have a crush on, and has disappeared with him, and everybody thinks that, Shen QingQiu's being, all holier than thou, trying to protect everybody by going along with Lo Binghe and getting taken back to his sex dungeon, and maybe, who knows, Shen QingQiu, maybe he'll end up liking it. I'm so excited. But anyway, before we dive into the season 2 trailer, I want to talk about some comments and before we start this chapter set. So Breezy3392 says that in Beauty and the Beast, the Beast in Beauty and the Beast not only wanted to fix himself for Belle, but because he didn't like himself and how he was presenting himself. So I'm wondering in Volume 3 if Lo Binghe is not only going to want to become a better person to not only win over Shen QingQiu, which would be nice, but also because he doesn't like where he's currently at and he wants to make himself better. That'd be nice. That'd be good character development. It would go along with what the system wants. I would be all for that. AP No for WU said, would the system be able to be destroyed? Who is the Lo Binghe seems to be the power source as it's powered back on. So who is the actual villain? Have we not met them yet? Yeah, I talked in previous chapter sets about the idea of the system being the villain, but then the question remains, if the system is the villain of the series, how do you destroy it? It's a system. That kind of goes back to Shang Qinghua, and I don't know if Shang Qinghua is the overall villain. I think he's just kind of bumbling and maybe a victim of circumstance. I don't know, but it could be that the villain of the actual series overall is somebody. Maybe Lo Binghe's dad's going to be the overall villain, and that's who we've got to face. Maybe it's Shen QingQiu's obliviousness. That's the actual villain. Maybe it's the fog of misunderstanding. We don't know. But I am going to be very curious to see what we get out of this volume in terms of the system itself and what it reveals. Especially now that they're together, the system's probably going to be elated. But Amalia Jungklaus says Shen QingQiu, despite the story telling him otherwise, has no faith that he can fix or change the story. So we have up there on Whiteboard Coon, who's waiting off in the wings for the discussion, the concept that now Lo Binghe, now that Shen QingQiu knows that he's gay, the next step is for Shen QingQiu to fully realize he can change the course of events in the story. And I'm pretty confident that Shen QingQiu will get to that point. I'm hoping Volume 3 is one of those moments, one of those times where that ends up happening. So that'll be really interesting. SQQLBH314 said that all the places near Huanhua Palace are named after flowers related in nature. Jinlan means the gold orchid, or it's used to describe a sworn brotherhood or sisterhood or friendship to the point of family, which is interesting. Bailu means white dew or autumn dew. Huayu means flower moon and is used to describe beautiful views, and Huanhua means illusory or imaginary flowers. Which is interesting that Huanhua is imaginary flowers, because then you have the little palace mistress who looks very pretty, but she's actually Little Miss Piggy. So I think that's pretty cool. And then Anime Annie described, the sword fighting during the water prison chapters was kind of like dancing. The sword fighting are like dancing, or in Modazushi it'd be foreplay. So we'll see how that goes in this chapter set. Speaking of which, I'm really excited. Super excited, because Volume 1, the way the chapter sets worked out, we had 9 weeks of Volume 1. We had 9 sets of chapters. And I was like, okay. And then Volume 2, we only had 8 weeks. We only had 8 sets of chapters. And I was like, this volume's going to go by so fast. And fast it did. I'm happy to tell y'all that for Volume 3, we have 10 chapter sets. We have 10 weeks. And I'm really excited because I think they've all worked out really well chapter-wise. I'm sure all of you, as soon as I tell you the chapter titles or the chapter sets, you'll be like, whether it's a cliffhanger or not, I don't know. I just took Reiki's chapters and page numbers and was like, okay, I want roughly about 30 to 40 pages per chapter set. So we're going to start out relatively easy this week. We're going to ease into it. So we're going to start out with just chapters 55 and 56, but it is pages 9 to 35 in the book, which is about 26 pages. Doesn't seem like a lot, I know, but after that, all of the other chapter sets are going to be 30 to 40 pages. And it worked out that way, that was just the best way to do it, because otherwise the chapters were not going to work out, or I was going to do four with Scumville and Self-Saving System, 4 chapters in a set is too much. And there are some chapters as we get down the line, like towards the end of the volume, that only 2 chapters took up literally 40 pages. And I was like, oh no, we're good there. So for the most part, these are all going to be 2 to 3 chapter sets. But after this week, we will have basically 30 to 40 pages per chapter set. So figure we'll just start off and ease into Volume 3. that seemed like the best way to do it. And so I'm really, really excited. But yes, thank you all so much for the comments. The moderators do flag the ones that have spoilers, but all the other ones I do read, and I've had so much fun with everybody's comments. They've been such a good time. And I'm so excited because even though I'm reading ahead, I'm getting back to the parts. Every chapter set has been good in this series so far. So I'm looking so forward to it with you all throughout this chapter set. But I want to look at, before we start this volume, look at the trailer for what season 2. And this came out 2 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, why? I understand the government. I understand animation problems. I understand a lot of things, but 2 years is an awful long time to wait. This came out September of 2021. It's almost been 3 years. So that's super sad. It's almost been 3 years, right? Maybe it's fun that we're watching this near the 3-year anniversary. We'll just go from there. So we're going to start this trailer for season 2, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's see what we get. Oh. 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 Uh-huh. Oh. Oh my God, no, not the bugs! Oh my God. Oh no! Oh my God, from last season! Is that it? Bitch, no, that can't be it! That's all you got? That's all you got. No. No. Oh, I am sorry. I am so sorry. That's all you got. Oh my God. I feel so bad for you all. I really, really do. That's not even a trailer. That's not even a teaser. That's a lick. You got a lick of season 2 of volume 2. I've seen posters that had more on them than that gave you. I'm so sorry. You all struggle bus. Struggle bus. Okay. Well, we're going to start volume 3 and see if that makes up for it. I'm so excited, y'all. So, Lo Binghe has ran off with Shen QingQiu, and we're going to get this started here in 3, 2, 1. Again, this cover, as I pull it up here, I just love the earnest expression on Lo Binghe's face, and Shen QingQiu's looking at the camera like, don't you get any ideas? It's great. It's great. So, let's go through this, shall we? All right. So basically we have a bunch of chapter sets, which Reiki has organized for me. So we're pretty excited about this. I'm not going to pay too close attention to them. Chapter 14, House Arrest. Chapter 55. Like I said, I'm not going to go back to the table of contents and see what all we get. We're going to just deal with it like we do. But House Arrest, chapter 55. Tale as old as time. We'll see if this is Beauty and the Beast or not. Give that bitch a library. We'll see if it goes. A wide stone corridor connected the rift between the two realms. Pair after pair of torches stretched endlessly into the distance, and the deepest reaches were cast in a forbidding gloom. The style of the murals lining both sides of the corridor and the ominous atmosphere made clear this was Lo Binghe's headquarters in the Demon Realm. So they're in the Demon Realm. We didn't even go back to Huanhua Palace. Nope, we went to the Demon Realm. Okay. After the rift closed, Lo Binghe slowly released his iron grip on Shen QingQiu. Shen QingQiu stood straight and dusted off his sleeves, not saying a word. Neither of them had anything to say. Keeping their eyes straight ahead, they walked, one in front and one behind. Their footsteps made not a breath of sound, and the atmosphere was stiff and cold. We gotta start somewhere, right? The forks in the corridor of the underground palace slowed Lo Binghe by not even a hair's breadth. After a path of twists, full, and turns, the scene suddenly opened before their eyes. Architecture in the demon realm was mostly entrenched underground in excavated subterranean caves, never exposed to the sun, moon, or stars. This area, however, broke through the grand overhead, allowing sunlight to pierce the interior and lend it quite a bit of life. Upon crossing through the door, Shen QingQiu found the furnishings and arrangement of the room quite familiar. In fact, it was very similar to the bamboo house on Qijing Peak. Shen QingQiu was filled with an inexplicable fury. He really wanted to ask Lo Binghe, is there any meaning to this? Arranging the scene and props like they were acting on stage, dumping me in this little pen, pretending like nothing ever happened. Do you want to continue that little domestic play from your dream realm of a loving master and disciple? Oh, shit! Okay, well, so Shen QingQiu, are you going to address the thing that he's done to you and how he should, and are you going to talk about this? Are we going to communicate? Because to Shen QingQiu, it looks like they're playing house. Acting pathetic and pitiful one moment to make Shen QingQiu overflow with sympathy, then slapping him across the face and telling him it was all an act in the next. What was real? What was fake? Well, pot calling the kettle black. He wasn't so perceptive that he could see through to Lo Binghe's real thoughts. How much was honest and how much was insincere? While Shen QingQiu brooded to himself, Lo Binghe walked a step closer to him. A few days earlier, Shen QingQiu couldn't have gone away from Lo Binghe fast enough, retreating 3 steps for every one he took. Now he didn't want to do that sort of thing anymore. Retreating would make him look too much like a respectable woman kidnapped by a ruffian. Too much like affected bashfulness. Even as a dragon swimming in shallow waters or a tiger dropped onto the plains, if he were so shameless as to describe himself as such. He could still scrounge up the last iota of elegant and prudent poser skills. So he wouldn't sink to such a thoroughly unsightly state. So he doesn't want to see himself as like a damsel in distress. He's like, I don't want to be presented that way. I don't want to that way. Which I don't blame him, but also there's so much miscommunication with them. They need to talk amongst each other. But he was inevitably tense. His heart stretched as taut as a bowstring. His fingers curled and his eyelid twitched. And how perceptive Lo Binghe was. He took another step forward. Shizun, what do you think I'm going to do to you? I cannot guess, Shen QingQiu said sincerely. He would never dare randomly guess at Lo Binghe's intentions ever again. As reality proved over and over, he was light years off the mark every time. Lo Binghe reached out his right hand. Shen QingQiu didn't move an inch, but his gaze was glued to those fingertips, following their whole trajectory. That hand was slender and unadorned. It didn't look like the hand of a young lord of a demon race who'd already taken countless lives, but rather one whose master had been born to pluck strings. His hand to burn incense and bathe in snow. It slid faintly over Shen QingQiu's cheek, a barely discernible brush against his skin, and then it landed on his throat. It's like they just describe it in such detail, and then it starts to get into being a little bit aggressive. Shen QingQiu didn't know whether he was mistaken, but his hand seemed to press exactly against one of the major arteries of his neck. Oh, his throat bobbed imperceptibly. But Lo Binghe pulled his hand away. The next time he opened his mouth, it was impossible to read his emotions. My blood no longer responds to my beckoning. So, when he had touched Shen QingQiu's skin just now, it had been to probe the suppressed heavenly demon blood in Shen QingQiu's body. So Shen QingQiu's going to think, oh, he's not trying to flirt with me, he's trying to see if he can use me. It looks like in these short few days, Shizun has had a fortuitous encounter, said Lo Binghe. So what are you going to do? Shen QingQiu asked. Make me drink it again? You'll run if you drink it. You'll run if you don't. It's the same either way. I'd prefer not to give Shizun another reason to loathe me. In front of others, he had left not a bit of face for Shen QingQiu. But in private, he suddenly became polite and courteous. There was no concise way to express what Shen QingQiu felt about this. Shizun, please stay here for the time being. If you are willing, you may go wherever you wish within the... You can go anywhere you want except for the West Wing! So Lo Binghe continued, I have left some people outside, but they will not enter this room. If you want for anything, simply summon them. How considerate, said Shen QingQiu. This is Beauty and the Beast. He just locked her in the palace and let her go wherever she wanted to, except the West Wing. All he needs to do is say one place is forbidden. Lo Binghe fixed his gaze on him for a time and then said, is there anything you want? Shen QingQiu said, can I ask for anything? Lo Binghe nodded in a sudden spate of malice. Shen QingQiu bluntly said, then I ask to see you as little as possible. It'll be best if I never see you at all. Lo Binghe looked as if he never expected Shen QingQiu to make this sort of request. His face paled. At the sight of this, Shen QingQiu felt a flash of schadenfreude, but at the same time he also felt a stab of pain like he'd been pricked with a needle. Perhaps it was because in the past he'd never said anything so scathing and vicious to anyone. The color took a time to return to Lo Binghe's face. Shizun once asked me if I wanted to become strong. When I asked you that question, I believe I also told you that the purpose of becoming strong is to protect, not to plunder and slaughter, says Shen QingQiu. No, Lo Binghe said in a dull tone. You had it wrong. Not everything Shizun taught was correct. Only after becoming the strongest can one keep the people they want to have securely in their palms. I finally understand. Waiting for Shizun to come himself won't do. He clenched his fist, forcefully twisting a vicious smile onto his face. So now that I've caught you, Shizun had better not think of escaping ever again. After this devil incarnate exited the scene, Shen QingQiu pinged the system. Are you there, 2.0? The system provides comprehensive 24-hour support and user-friendly online service. Comprehensive is enough. Forget about the user-friendly. What are my current point values? B points, 1,330. Successfully removed Laden with Landmines tag from Proud Immortal Demon Way. Unlocked achievement, rather a lot of things to roast. Keep up the good work. We look forward to your next mystery achievement unlock. Satisfaction points, 3,840. Anger points, 1,500. Heartbreak points, 4,500. Continued efforts required. Oh. Uh-oh. Very good. Although his great effort, grave digging, this stupidly cliche stallion novel had finally seen some improvement in terms of B points, though rather a lot of things to roast wasn't a favorable evaluation. It was certainly a few ticks above Laden with Landmines, right? Also, the anger points weren't the heaven-defying value he had feared, though the heartbreak points were high enough that he felt like he'd been pricked by another needle. Averting his gaze, Shen QingQiu said, with so many satisfaction points, can I exchange them for something? You can exchange them for a system feature upgrade. Shen QingQiu's mood improved quite a bit. Well, okay, do the upgrade. You didn't ask about the upgrade. With a ringing notification sound, the system bashfully began to download the upgrade package. Shen QingQiu had a thought and then asked, oh, right, what's the name of this feature upgrade again? A small scenario pusher, luxury edition. Shen QingQiu decisively jabbed at the cancel button on the download window. Crap, it's already downloaded, and it's fucking cost 3,000 satisfaction points. I'm leaving a bad review! As he aggrievedly spanned the system with a laundry list of complaints, Shen QingQiu began his life under house arrest. Oh my god! Lo Binghe was busy uniting the northern border demons in Mo Beijun's territory, and Xia Hualing seemed to have officially initiated her grand undertaking to backstab her dad. Literally. In short, in the near future, Lo Binghe had plenty of enemies to obliterate and allies to rope in. He was likely busy with work and he couldn't extricate himself from, and for that reason, he never showed his face again. Or maybe it was because the first day, a couple of harsh words from Shen QingQiu had shattered his glass heart upon the ground, and he was too afraid to show his face. Shen QingQiu tried his best to tear his thoughts away from the latter possibility. Either way, if Lo Binghe continued to leave him alone, wasn't this the exact days spent idling away to a ripe old age lifestyle that he'd been pursuing this whole time? Furthermore, Lo Binghe didn't act like the characters in the strange novels that Shen QingQiu's younger sister had liked to read in his previous life. He didn't shackle Shen QingQiu to the bed with iron chains, blindfolded and gagged, or stripped him naked, or beat him, or anything. You'll never be unhappy once you learn to be satisfied with what you have. Might as well just go with the flow. Bullshit! If Shen QingQiu could honestly comfort himself that way, he'd have shit for brains. He didn't have Stockholm Syndrome. He wouldn't be falling over himself with gratitude at the slightest hint of good treatment. A fortunate lifestyle needs to be built by one's hands, not acquired by way of charity. Understand? Good. Okay. After failing to brainwash himself, Shen QingQiu's fingers tightened, and a page of the book he was reading tore in his hands. At the same time, a louder sound of cracking bamboo came from outside the window. He lifted the curtain and saw a group of demon servants hurrying about. Poking his head outside, he asked, "What are you doing?" "Master Shen, what brings you outside?" The servant had an extremely enthusiastic and deferential attitude, completely unlike someone speaking to a person under house arrest. He smiled and said, "We're planting bamboo over here." Shen QingQiu started. "Bamboo?" You recognize this human realm plant. It's hard to plant here in the demon realm and it won't grow properly, but our Lord is determined to cultivate it here, so everyone just has to find a way." Observing the servant's strength and the way that he moved, Shen QingQiu knew he was definitely no ordinary manual laborer. The demons that Lo Binghe had recruited from the major demon tribes' fighting forces were doubtless their cream of the crop. To make these martial experts do odd jobs was categorically a waste of resources. And that wasn't even the end of it. For the first 2 days, Shen QingQiu had neither the mood nor appetite, but on the third day he lost interest in Anidia and gave a few reserved instructions to, i.e. flirted with, the pretty, pale, and busty demon maid, calling for a meal to be delivered. He flirted with the maid? What? Before he had taken even 2 bites, he lost the will to continue. The maid tilted her head. "What is it, Master Shen?" she asked with a grin. "Is the flavor not good?" The flavor was good. Very good. It was precisely because it was too good, an extremely familiar kind of good, one that Shen QingQiu hadn't tasted for years, that he could not continue. Reminds me of Once Upon a Time in Mexico, where Johnny Depp's character's like, the Puerto Pibil is too good. He put down his chopsticks and asked, "Did you make this, miss?" The maid giggled. "Oh, how could that be? I only know how to kill and eat the meat fresh, or wait for it to rot before eating. I don't know any of those human recipes with all their fire and rice, oil and salt. Far too annoying." Fuck. So this beautiful, clear-voiced demon with her sweet, orchid-scented breath was a lover of rotten flesh. Shen QingQiu could just tell that making this girl clean tables and sweep the floor every day was a profound debasement. He figured that her abilities were probably more suited to slaying her enemies with a set of broad axes, as opposed to chopping melons and vegetables, and it was very likely that she had once held that exact job. "Then who made it?" Shen QingQiu asked flatly. I dare not say," said the maid. "My lord would definitely kill me if I did." "Dare not say? Would he somehow be unable to taste the truth as long as she didn't?" So it was Lo Binghe. Shen QingQiu put down the chopsticks and then picked them up again. What was that saying again? The hand that has received is hesitant. The mouth that has been fed is weak. Shen QingQiu fretted hard over whether, after finishing this meal, he could still self-righteously express dissatisfaction with Lo Binghe. But in the end, the cook was too familiar with Shen QingQiu's tastes and eating habits, and in the midst of his fretting, he unknowingly managed to clean his plate. The maid cleared the dishes and left with swaying hips, covering a smirk with her hand. Not long after she left, the curtain lifted and a person wobbled their way in. At the sight of this face, a vicious feeling sprang from Shen QingQiu's gut. Greeting him with a spiritual blast, he yelled, "Airplane shooting towards the sky! Fuck your Shang Qinghua!" Frantically raised his hands to block, raising a still-sheathed sword between them to absorb the attack. Hey! Oh, don't, 1,000 times don't! Oh, good Master Shen, you can't just fuck around with whoever you please now. If you fucked around with me, well, it wouldn't end well for me, but don't think that guy would let you off easy either. You sold me out! Shen QingQiu roared. What about our friendship? What about being comrades from the same hometown? Since when did we have a friendship? Unless it was a love-hate relationship all along, Shang Qinghua retorted. Oh, stop it, that hurts. Oh, what else could I have done but sell you out? That's esteemed Master Lo, okay? Even if I hadn't sold you out, he was going to guess about anyway. Why would I take an extra beating for no reason? That would have been pointless, so I chose to confess for a lenient sentence. Shen QingQiu was shocked by the matter-of-fact shamelessness of this reply. In this moment of inattention, Shang Qinghua strode over and sat down at the table with a lift of his hem. He slapped the sword he was holding down on the table. Let's not talk about this anymore. I was ordered to deliver something to you. Once Shen QingQiu got a better look at the sword, his hand was already reaching out to touch it. It was the very sword that had been shattered to pieces by his collapsing spiritual energy when he had self-detonated. The misfortunate Zhu Ya. Shen QingQiu retained an emotional attachment to Zhu Ya, and as soon as he grasped his former sword in hand, he had no more attention to devote to beating up Shang Qinghua. Drawing the blade from its sheath, it was as pure white and snow-bright as it had ever been, slender and elegant. Its broken pieces had been seamlessly reconnected, and it overflowed with spiritual energy, with not a hairline fracture to be seen. To the side, Shang Qinghua let out a squirrely laugh and rubbed his hands, clicking his tongue. Really, I never thought that the storyline would warp to this point. It's truly remarkable, truly remarkable. The stallion novel protagonist you wrote turned gay, said Shen QingQiu. Shouldn't you be angry? It doesn't matter, Shang Qinghua said sincerely. Either way, the one he's got his eye on isn't me. Shen QingQiu gave him a cordial middle finger, and then looked back to polish his sword. Shang Qinghua gave him a thumbs up. Really, you don't need to be so pessimistic. You have good prospects for the future, quite good prospects. Those golden thighs, they're thick and sturdy, very reliable. Take your fucking golden thighs, said Shen QingQiu. At least those are just thighs. Where have I ended up? Between the thighs. Ah, between the thighs is even better. Ah, a man's most important object is between the thighs. Oh my God, this whole conversation. Shang Qinghua, you are so casual. Oh my God. If not for the fact that Zhu Ya had only just returned to Shen QingQiu's hands and he couldn't bear to use it for filthy things, he really had the mind to slice off a chunk of that object between Shang Qinghua's thighs. Not in the mood for this buffoonery, his face grew serious again. Since you confessed for leniency, I'll ask you, did you ever establish any settings for the character of Tian Longjun? Why are you asking about Bingei's dad? Shang Qinghua replied. No real reason. I just thought it was strange how you didn't write a whole thesis on the protagonist's father. I know for a fact that you can crank out 1,000,000 words by adding another wife. You could definitely serialize for 3 more years by adding a father. Shang Qinghua's ears pricked up. You really have an eye for this. Undeniably a faithful reader of mine. I can tell you that originally I was writing from a grand outline where Bingei's dad was the final boss. But as I wrote, my computer died. I lost my outline and I forgot a ton of the details. Oh my God. And back then, everyone in the comments section was saying that they wanted to see another plot line, right? The one where Bingei bravely conquered 100 flowers, you understand? A whole 100 holy flower spirits who had from their birth never laid eyes on a man, and all of them virgins. Oh, cucumber bro, how I suffered while I was writing the chapter of the 100 flower buds' first mass blooming. And still you roast me. Shen QingQiu responded with silence. At long last, he knew where all those plot holes had come from. So you went to write the harem subplot and decided to leave the more serious plotline of Bingei's dad full of holes? Well, actually, leaving it full of holes was no big deal, right? As long as the readers were satisfied, said Shang Qinghua. All the maidens who should have been bedded were bedded, and all the cannon fodder who should have been killed were killed. Pursuing another plotline that everyone might not be interested in would have been grueling and thankless. I needed to make a living. If the subscribers jumped ship, then I wouldn't be able to feed myself. Cucumber bro, net writers really don't have it easy. Except airplane shooting towards the sky had too much fun cutting down all those outlines. And the system's strict sense of responsibility was making Shen QingQiu fill all the holes that Shang Qinghua had dug while abandoning his artistic principles. In fact, I was also forced against my will, Shang Qinghua continued. In my original outline, Tian Longjun had purer blood than Bingei. His martial power was stronger, and he'd earned his fame earlier, and he was just more badass all around. A proud and carefree wanderer of the 3 realms, standing far above the common sort or whatever, and he even had a deeply moving tragic backstory. Very Gary Stu, right? What if the readers thought he was stealing Bingei's spotlight and started protesting? What would I do then? You know Bingei's fans are very vicious. Vicious when fighting, and also vicious when giving tips. Shen QingQiu face-palmed. Hearing this confession from Great Master Airplane, he was starting to worry. If Tianlong Jun had really been released, would Lo Binghe ever be able to defeat him? Oh my god! But looking at it from another angle, maybe it would be possible to use the father to curb the son. Shen QingQiu immediately snuffed out the dangerous line of thought. When it came to an opponent you knew nothing about, where even their moral alignment was in question, stupidly attempting to use them could result in you dying without even knowing the reason why. So the conclusion was still rock solid, unchanging even after 10,000 years. Great Master Airplane shooting, flying towards the sky, truly was the genius of a generation, a man unparalleled with literary brilliance. Shen QingQiu slapped the table. Be straight with me. List out everything you planned, but didn't write when you changed the outline. The important things first. I don't know what's important or not, but there is a part that has to do with you, Shang Qinghua stammered, or precisely that has to do with Shinju. Before, I was always embarrassed to say. Upon hearing this, the hair on the back of Shen QingQiu's neck stood up in horror. Knowing airplanes flying towards the skies, shitty tendencies, it'd be a wonder if he had given Shen QingQiu a normal backstory. Just tell me, he said, holding his head in his hands. I can take it. Shang Qinghua embarked on an impassioned explanation of his artistic concept. I had a lot of ideas for the character Shen QingQiu. I had hoped to portray him as a well-rounded, three-dimensional character. He's scum, he's wretched, but he has a reason to be scum, as well as a not scummy side. But the readers didn't really buy it. As soon as I inserted signs of his development, they started griping in the reviews. So I saw the winds weren't blowing the right way and immediately turned him into a tropey, wretched asshole. But really, Shen QingQiu had turned his full attention to the explanation when suddenly the maids outside all chorused in a respectful tone, "My lord, this is really the worst time you could have come." Oh my god! So Shang Qinghua did have stuff planned with him, but we don't know what it is! No! At this, Shang Qinghua's expression transformed, and he jumped a meter off the floor like his butt had been lit on fire. Rushing towards the back door, he shouted over his shoulder, "Oh, that man of yours is here! Let's do it later. Wait, let's chat later!" Oh! Don't go! Shen QingQiu futilely reached out after him. "Screw your let's chat later!" Oh my god, I saw the double entendre, did you? Cutting it off at this sort of point was even more unbearable than that cheesy cliche where the eyewitness at death's door said the killer was, and then coughs up a mouthful of blood and dies. The green curtain lifted, and Lo Binghe stooped to enter the room. Shen QingQiu immediately assumed an unruffled expression. However, because his very important and serious discussion had been cut off, he looked rather displeased. Lo Binghe's gaze alighted first on Juya, the sword in his hand, before shifting upward. After a brief silence, Lo Binghe was still the one that spoke first. "It seems that Shizun has not slept at all these past few days." Speaking of rest, Shen QingQiu immediately thought of dreams. Speaking of dreams, he couldn't help but remember all the embarrassing things he had done in the dream realm to console Lo Binghe. Shen QingQiu rubbed his nose and said, "If I could sleep without dreaming, I would be happy to." Lo Binghe's eyelashes lowered slightly. After standing there for a while, he seemed to gather all his courage before his next words stiffly left his mouth. "Although I hid some things from Shizun in the dream realm, none of the feelings I revealed there were false." Lo Binghe sighed, or Shen QingQiu sighed. "Lo Binghe, at present I really don't know which of your words are true and which are false," he said honestly. "Therefore, don't bother saying such things." The Lo Binghe in that dream had indubitably been much cuter. Even though the dream protagonist was still the protagonist, his look then, with his insides all twisted up in misery and on a face that wasn't half bad at that, left even a straight guy like Shen QingQiu with no option but to pity him. But the more pity Shen QingQiu had felt then, the more painfully his face had been slapped after. Lo Binghe had claimed that the events in Jinlan City were not his doing, and at the time Shen QingQiu had believed him about 9/10 of the way. Now he didn't dare entertain even 1/10 of that belief. Blood rushed to Lo Binghe's face, reddening his cheeks. Lifting his eyelids, he said coldly, "Well, Shizun's only concern is being angry that I deceived him. But if I hadn't done so, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to speak a word to you." His fingers unconsciously clenched tighter and tighter on Jinmo's hilt until his knuckles went white with the strain. A faint red glow extended from his pupils to even the rims of his eyes. As if Shizun never deceived me. You said you didn't approve of assigning much importance to the difference between races, yet in the blink of an eye you changed your tune and refused to admit it. For the 5 years after your death at Huayu City, I summoned your soul thousands of times, failing with every try, and trying again with every failure, but I never let my hopes grow cold. Despite this, I never suspected that Shizun would scorn me to this extent. To have already returned to the world, yet coldly look on as I lost my mind and made a fool of myself. At the end of Lo Binghei's tirade, his final syllables were somewhat unsteady, the pitch of his voice rising in what could have been fury or exasperation. Of course, Shizun has an abundant reason to denounce me as devil incarnate now. I've brought disaster across the land, but why is it that even when I've done nothing at all, I was still shunned like a snake or a scorpion? You've deceived me twice, and I've deceived you twice. Isn't that entirely fair? Even though he felt this 1-for-1, 2-for-2 logic was not even a fraction off the mark, Shen QingQiu still couldn't help but say, you really cling to your grudges. Lo Binghei sneered, I'm afraid Shizun has never seen what I'm like when I really hold a grudge against someone. His face gradually settled into a grim expression, and he closed some of the distance between them. But what if I said that when it comes to Shizun, I only cling to memories, not grudges? I probably wouldn't be believed, would I? As the shadow Lo Binghei's figure cast increased in size, Shen QingQiu hurriedly said, compose yourself. If you want to talk, then talk properly. Don't suddenly change attitudes and don't come so close. Shen QingQiu, Shizun! You can always compose yourself, Lo Binghei said in a low voice. But I can no longer do the same. Shen QingQiu hadn't fully processed what exactly was going on when, with a thud, his back began to hurt. The next thing he knew, the two of them had already rolled onto the bed. It's been so long since I've slept on this bamboo bed. Holy shit, it's fucking hard! Shen QingQiu yelled, oh, you insolent! Lo Binghei pursed his lips and refused to speak. Just as Shen QingQiu thought to kick him away, goosebumps erupted over his skin from head to toe. A hand had suddenly reached into his inner robe from the hem. You've got to be kidding me. He violently jerked his knee up, but Lo Binghei caught it with a single hand, using his momentum to press it against the side of Shen QingQiu's body. Shen QingQiu internally yelled, crap, 100 times. He didn't want to be forced into a position where he was lying under another person with his legs spread eagle. He immediately snapped his torso upward, and with a well-timed burst of energy and a twist of his waist, he flipped them over in a 180 reversal, pinning Lo Binghei under him. Shuya unsheathed 3 inches, coldly pressing against Lo Binghei's throat. This was the first time in Shen QingQiu's life that anyone had forced themselves onto him, and he had subsequently been forced into a rage. So you're trying to take advantage of your Shizun? How filial! He was indeed at someone else's mercy now, but no one could expect him to just quietly submit like that. Lo Binghei's escape routes and the vital point of his neck were all at Shen QingQiu's mercy, but his eyes were dazzlingly bright. Not fearing the sharp blade at his neck in the slightest, he grabbed Shen QingQiu's wrist with one hand and embraced the other against the ground. With a vigorous lunge, he reversed their positions again. Of course, Shen QingQiu wouldn't let him do as he wished, and jabbed at an acupoint with Zhuya's hilt. After a few such exchanges, they had brawled themselves into a heap. They rolled off the bed, tumbling the whole way, white flashes and sparks exploding in every direction, spiritual and demonic energy churning in a confused fog, spiritual blasts flying at random. Shen QingQiu had spent too long being a poser. He didn't know how long it had been since he had fought in such a crude manner. Only after the brawl reached its peak did Shen QingQiu have a sudden realization. That's not right. This is a cultivation novel. Why the fuck am I fighting with my bare hands? What sort of dumbass has a cannon that he doesn't use? He immediately raised his hand, pumped it full of spiritual energy, and sent an earth-shattering punch towards Lo Binghei's lower abdomen. Oh my gosh! We still have 1 chapter! Lo Binghei took the blow bodily without making a sound. To tell the truth, Shen QingQiu hadn't expected to truly hit Lo Binghei, but that didn't stop his punch from feeling extremely satisfying. It was like all the pent-up anger they'd been building up for the past few days had been smashed out along with it. Suddenly, The system chirped with a congratulatory notice. Congratulations! Satisfaction points 500. Shen QingQiu was utterly speechless. Lo Binghe was really a tried and true masochist. The kind who was happy being roughed up. Hit him once and earned 500 satisfaction points. Even the system notification had become lively and flirtatious emojis. And on top of that, it came with a never-before-seen pair of tildes. Shen QingQiu had never met a greater weirdo in all of his life, and this weirdo was one he'd raised himself. Shen QingQiu was bemoaning the failure of his pedagogical results. But Lo Binghe wasn't playing anymore. He flicked his right hand, and Shen QingQiu accidentally released the spiritual energy he'd been holding. With a bang, it smashed a beautifully shaped hole in the ceiling. Dust drifted downward, blocked by Lo Binghe above. Lo Binghe's hands tugged at Shen QingQiu's outer robes, easily tearing them apart. Hit me all you want. You can't kill me either. This disciple gladly accepts Shizun's instruction, he said with a smile on his face. Oh my God, but a mournful tone seemed to hide behind that smile. Distracted from even how his clothes were being torn off, Shen QingQiu's heart clenched, and he involuntarily stopped moving. But Lo Binghe didn't give Shen QingQiu any more time to pity him. Suddenly, a hand ripped open his inner robes and crept to his waist, skin to skin. Shen QingQiu went limp for a moment, and then slammed his sword hilt onto Lo Binghe's forehead with a thud. Oh, you beast! Lo Binghe had seemed to have given up on himself. If Shizun sees me as no better than a beast either way, then I might as well live up to expectations. Shen QingQiu wanted to laugh in anger, but suddenly his vision blurred, his body swayed, and Zhuya crashed to the ground. There was something wrenching at him, like his whole soul was about to be pulled out of his body. He could only go stiff. Lo Binghe also stopped his movements, shocked. A mere moment later, Shen QingQiu's head began to hurt like it was going to explode. Countless shattered scenes flashed before his eyes at top speed, sometimes blank white, sometimes pitch black, masks, and sometimes he even saw vague human figures. His eardrums stung from the sharp ringing in his ears. Lo Binghe couldn't spare a moment for caution. He hurriedly vaulted to a sitting position and reached out to hold Shen QingQiu down, but he couldn't manage to keep him still. It was like a giant pair of hands were roughly dragging Shen QingQiu's brains and souls out of his body. And he held his head rolling back and forth on the ground as he struggled. Something was screaming, stretching hands towards him in every direction, screeching and tearing at his soul. Shizun, I was just trying to scare you. Oh, don't take it seriously. What's wrong? Lo Binghe cried out in a panic. Shen QingQiu's body thrashed back and forth in his embrace. Lo Binghe held him with one arm, hurriedly scanning his body with spiritual energy. And though there were no abnormalities, Shen QingQiu's screams were horribly shrill, as if a red-hot piece of iron had poked right into his brain. Lo Binghe tried everything he could think of, but to no avail. As Shen QingQiu's pulse grew weaker and weaker, Lo Binghe began to tremble faintly, and then more and more violently. In the end, he couldn't keep himself upright anymore, and he collapsed from his half-kneeling position until both his knees collided with the ground. "Guards!" he yelled. "Every one of you, get in here!" Part 15, the Holy Mausoleum. Shen QingQiu's eyes shot open. It was pitch dark. His heart raced, eardrums seeming to hammer alongside his pulse. In order to determine whether it was just so dark that he couldn't see his hand in front of his face, or if he in fact had gone blind, Shen QingQiu really did stretch out his hand to test the vision. Before he got very far, his fingertips hit a sturdy wall. Shen QingQiu began to feel around. After a while, he had a basic sense of his surroundings. Oh my God! Did they use the body and pull his soul back into Shen QingQiu's body? Oh my God! What? Hold on. What? Is that what happened? His soul got pulled back to the other body from the ritual? Hold on. Oh my God! After a while, he had a basic sense of his surroundings. He was currently inside a cramped space. It seemed he had been placed in a rectangular stone box. Oh my God. He lightly patted the stone walls to find that they were ice cold, the material slick and smooth like marble. When he surveyed them with spiritual energy, he found that they weren't too thick, probably no more than 4 inches. He felt around some more, sucked in a breath and held it, and then abruptly struck out. With a rumble of spiritual energy, he landed a heavy blow in the center of the stone cover above him. After 3 strikes in a row, the darkness split apart into pieces along with the sound of shattering rock. Fresh air poured in. Shen QingQiu abruptly sat up and drew a few deep breaths until he discovered the air wasn't fresh at all. Instead, it was like the underground air had been stagnant for years, and it was extremely thin. When he looked around, he found that he was lying in a coffin. This rectangular box, it seemed, had a finely sculpted stone casket, pure white like jade. Shen QingQiu placed a hand lightly on the edge of the coffin and leapt out. Looking around, he found he stood in a dimly lit stone room. The coffin whose lid he had blasted was placed on an altar in the center of the room, and disordered piles of dusty objects were strewn around the corners. Weapons, gemstones, books, bottles, and jars lay scattered about. The glint of blades and the glow of jewels shone beneath the thick layer of dust, sending faint light flowing about the room. The walls around Shen QingQiu were also painted with the murals of demons in crazed revelry, surrounding him from all sides. The Holy Mausoleum of the demon race. This was Shen QingQiu's conclusion. Before he could digest this information, he inadvertently looked down and was struck dumb by another piece of information. His body wasn't the one grown from the sun, moon, dew mushroom. This was Shen QingQiu's original body. Oh, shit! Well! Oh! The Holy Mausoleum purportedly housed the means by which to revive the dead, and it looked like this really wasn't hearsay. Given the situation, it was likely that someone had snuck Shen QingQiu's corpse into the Holy Mausoleum and then activated a soul summoning array, yanking him away from his new body. This is going to be like a game of tug of war. We're just going to tug his soul back and forth between bodies. The Holy Mausoleum was a restricted area for the demon race. Generations of the supreme rulers had been entombed there after their deaths. Anyone who entered without having reached the lofty position would die. But Shen QingQiu had been brought inside as a corpse, and only after his soul returned to his body had he started breathing again. By essentially taking advantage of a loophole, he'd gained the chance to play tourist. Shen QingQiu tried and found the flow of his spiritual energy was perfectly fine. Lo Binghe said he had spent 5 years restoring the meridians of this body, and this turned out to be true. As for the without a cure poison, Shen QingQiu didn't feel any unresponsiveness at present, but he didn't know if its effects had been dispelled. Once a soul has been placed into a body and created from the doom mushroom, the second that soul was taken away, the body would quickly wither and die. Oh my God. Shen QingQiu couldn't guess what sort of expression Lo Binghe would have on his face, standing in front of a withered and dried up body of his. Before his thoughts could drift, the system chirped with a message of notification. A gentle reminder, you have entered the advanced level plot scenario, the Holy Mausoleum. A plot hole filling quest has been issued. Please rise to the occasion and take the initiative. Shen QingQiu gave out an "oh" and continued to crouch in place. Please rise to the occasion and take the initiative. Shen QingQiu didn't move. Please rise to... I know, off with you! What a pain in the ass! Shen QingQiu exited the room, thinking back on the Holy Mausoleum subplot in the original novel as he walked. Residences in the demon realm were hidden beneath the earth, while their mausoleums were built above ground. In short, all their customs were the complete opposite of the human realms. Not only was the mausoleum filled with layer upon layer of wicked mechanisms, there were also countless demonic beasts guarding the tombs hidden in the shadows. If it weren't for the system's diabolical chattering, he'd have been on drugs to try wandering around this tomb corridor. The corridors were extremely dark, but Shen QingQiu didn't use a fire spell. He held his breath and silently walked onward. Not long after, he began to hear the slow and heavy sound of breathing. Or he called it breathing, but it was actually more like gasps of the dying. Shen QingQiu stood still. They had shown up entirely too fast. From the darkness, a lone, rail-thin figure gradually emerged. Next, a second and third followed right behind, slowly drifting closer like wandering souls. These figures swayed thrice with every step, getting closer and closer. Shen QingQiu didn't make a sound. Turning sideways, he slowed his breaths as much as he could. Of all the demonic beasts guarding the tomb, these were the lowest level with the highest encounter rate. Blind corpses. Blind corpses were called blind, but in truth, they wanted for not a single eye. Instead, they had a few extra pairs more than other monsters, all squished onto their faces. It made for an incredibly bizarre sight, and they would definitely make anyone with tryphobia ache with disgust. However, although they had a lot of eyes, the organs were basically useless. Most of the time, blind corpses were sightless even with their eyes open, their efficiency dismal as they wandered and patrolled the Holy Mausoleum. Though their eyes were both numerous and large, the organs were, to a one, very severely degenerated. However, these eyes were incredibly sensitive to light, and they could catch even the faintest reflected glow at top speed. As soon as blind corpses caught sight of something in their manner would abruptly change, and they would instinctively launch a fierce attack at the source of illumination. At the time, they would no longer move at the speed they were now, as they slowly wandered the corridors and lines. In short, monsters like this weren't frightening by themselves. What was frightening was a certain object that appeared alongside them. As Shen QingQiu thought this, a blind corpse tottered close as he sidestepped to avoid it. Suddenly, a faint flame began to burn amidst the darkness. This wisp of flame was dim green. It glowed brighter and brighter until it illuminated the entire corridor with a vivid emerald tone. The blind corpses about to brush past Shen QingQiu suddenly turned around. On every face were embedded 4 or 5 pairs of giant bloodshot eyeballs. Ugh! Glaring straight at him where he just stood within reach. Oh my god, that's terrifying, MXTX! What is this? That's horrifying! Last breath candles. Shen QingQiu moved with extraordinary speed, and in the next second he had flashed to the end of the corridor, but no matter where he fled, a faint green light appeared alongside him, illuminating his figure with nowhere to hide. He was fast, but the blind corpses triggered by the light source were faster. A few blind corpses threw themselves at Shen QingQiu, and he sent them flying. Last breath candles used the chi and breath of the living as fuel. As long as a living person or creature approached, they ignited on their own. At first, they sounded like random trinkets that could be used to play tricks while traveling the Zhangyu, but when deployed together with blind corpses, the effect was devastatingly brutal. Think about it. If an intruder managed to get into the Holy Mausoleum, no matter where they went, they still had to breathe. Once they did, the candles ignited, and you couldn't put them all out. Any corner of the Holy Mausoleum could house arrays of last breath candles. The throngs of blind corpses would then pounce, and only after the intruder's death would the candlelight gradually dim. Last breath, what an aptly chosen name! Take now, for example, more and more blind corpses had arrived in response to the light, to the point where the tomb corridor was overflowing. Shen QingQiu rushed out of the corridor and stole into a room. This hall was much wider and more imposing, and in the center was a coffin, placed high up on an altar. Shen QingQiu leapt up and tried to throw it open, but it didn't budge. When he tried to hit it again, there was a deep thud, but it didn't move an inch. To think it was so much more solid than the stone casket he had found himself lying in earlier. Shen QingQiu wondered if there was someone inside. He knocked on the lid. "Might I take shelter in your honored residence?" He was just saying whatever, but after he knocked a few times, a voice actually spoke from within the sarcophagus. The voice was clearly coming from the coffin, but it was as clear as if the speaker was speaking into Shen QingQiu's ear, not muffled at all. "Do as you please," the voice said as if smiling. A corpse come to life! Shen QingQiu was terrified. He swept out his leg, knocking a few blind corpses off the stone casket, and then in another few steps, jumped off the coffin himself and sent a spiritual blast at the ceiling. Loose rubble rumbled down. Realizing the stone of the ceiling was loosening, Shen QingQiu continued to send out wild blows. He thought to collapse the ceiling and escape in the confusion, thereby burying both the blind corpses and this revised corpse beneath the rubble. But in the chaos of the battle, he suddenly heard a low hiss coming from outside the tomb chamber. Oh my god! What? Well, never mind. Happy Volume 3! Oh shit! Oh no! This is all gone all awry! Oh no! This is man, I think I figured these out. Oh man, these are a lot of fun. So welcome to Volume 3, and all of its madness. We're just gonna put this over here for now. Everything is fine. Gotta time that out better. I'll get real good by the end of this. By the really into this with it. So, welcome to Volume 3. We're gonna talk about this here in a hot second, but remember how I thought we were gonna spend the entire volume at Lo Binghei's house? No, you only spent like the first chapter there, like a chapter and a half, and then the book was like, "Gotcha, bitch." It's like, that's what this series. One of the things I love so much about it is you think you know where it's going, you think you know what's gonna happen, and then MXTX is like, no, and completely flips the script, and it's like, oh my god, and it's so fun. We don't get a picture this volume set, which is sad days. You don't get a picture this one, but that's okay. I'll just use the photo of them like flying along, and it'll be very out of context alongside that. But oh my god, so a lot happened in this volume set. A lot happened. We need to talk about it, obviously. I did want to go to the Discord and talk about the chapter titles, though, for this set, because I feel like that's relatively important. So Reiki has chapters 55 and 56. Chapter 55 is Life Under House Arrest. And then, I was expecting chapter 56 to be the exact same thing, part 2, but it's like The Person in the Coffin. Wow. So yeah, those were great. They were great title. These chapters. So yeah, we just went back to the body. What's interesting about it is, and we're gonna put OG versus new on here, obviously, and then over here we're gonna put Lo Binghei over here, because Lo Binghei, there's a lot going on with Lo Binghei, as well as Shen QingQiu. These two, they were definitely in their squabbling couple with an argument phase, as if they haven't been in that the entire time of this series so far. But I feel like there's a lot going on. We need to address it. So it feels like every time Lo Binghei is about to mess up, something happens that makes him realize you messed up. And so I feel like maybe third time's a charm in this series. Maybe it's volume 3, third time's a charm, because we had, just to put up here, kind of between the two of them, we had originally Shen QingQiu sent Lo Binghei to the abyss, and through various misunderstandings, it led Lo Binghei to be angry and confused with Shen QingQiu. And meanwhile, Shen QingQiu believed that the OG story was panning out, and that he was going to end up suffering just like he had in the original, despite all the work he'd been trying to do. But from the first time, he was treating Lo Binghei like a character in a story and not like a real person. So that's Shen QingQiu's thing, is that he's been treating Lo Binghei with built-in prejudice. And he was trying to be nice, but the being nice was 50%, like we talked about in previous volumes. It was 50% him being legitimately nice, and 50% him trying to save his own skin, rather than being 100% nice and realizing what he was doing. He thought he was just saving himself from ending up like in a human stick figure. So that was kind of all that. Then what happened was that he self-detonated. So he got to a point where that did not work, and it was like choosing the bad ending of a choose your own adventure. He was like, oh shit, messed up, so he self-detonated to start the game over with, right? Then we had I'm just put Shen QingQiu on there, and basically his whole thing was that he figured out that Lo Binghei was into him, and realizes that the OG story has changed. And that's where we are there. And then what ended up happening was that he got in a state of, not only a state of denial, but trying to, out of spite, push Lo Binghei away. rather than, talking it out and communicating like we should be doing. No. And so then that led to Lo Binghe just saying, well, screw it. If you're going to call me a beast, then I'll be a beast. And if this is how it's going to be and we're not going to go any further, then I'll just be ridiculous. And to Lo Binghe essentially assaulting Shen QingQiu or Shen QingQiu. And then he gets spirited back to his OG body. It's an awful good thing that Lo Binghe took good care of it, because good thing he took good care of it, right? So back to that. So that was strike one. This is strike two. There ain't a third strike. Third strike and you're out. That's where we're at right now. Third strike and you're dead, because you don't have the sun, moon, dew mushroom anymore. That body, as they establish, is just withers and dies when you leave it. So that's out. And he's in this body. We don't know about the poison, which is problematic. But the good news is here's the thing though, with the older body, some questions that we don't know. Is the without a cure still active? Well, I think it is. Honestly, I think the without a cure is still active. Why would it be inactive unless the body died, but it's been in stasis? So I think that's a 50-50 chance. I think it's a 50-50 toss-up that it's still there. I think another 50-50 toss-up is that he has Lo Binghe's blood in his body again. Now, the good news is that he does not have a Zhu Xilong's blood inside of the old body. That's all done. So, which I wonder, when that body withered and died, if Zhu Xilong could detect that. I think the hiss at the end of this chapter is Zhu Xilong showing up to the mausoleum, because obviously Zhu Xilong, I think, stole the corpse and brought it to the mausoleum to do the ceremony to get Shen QingQiu's soul put back into it. I think so. So we're gonna touch base on that. But I have some theories, and we're going to go over that in this lovely chapter set. This lovely chapter set, as it would be. So, yeah. So, this first part here is called House Arrest. It was very interesting. It did not go the way Shang Qinghua and his whole segment, I'm still flabbergasted. I was flabbergasted throughout that entire one. I was like, oh my God. But I think it's safe to say by this point, I think that Shen QingQiu understands that the story can and has changed. I think it is safe to say at this point that he's realized the story can change. It has changed. It's not going to go the way. And when he had that conversation with Shang Qinghua, I was like, now that there's a lot of little plot points of the story that Shang Qinghua never elaborated upon that might want to touch base on. Might be a good time for that. So yeah. So we still have, he needs to realize that he needs to save Lo Binghe. And he still needs to realize that he likes Lo Binghe. And they both have to mutually come together. But what a rom-com that we're doing here. So anyway, this whole first part of this entire chapter felt like Beauty and the Beast. It felt like the Beast with the torch leading Belle to her room, and he's like, you can go anywhere you like except the West Wing. I was just waiting for him to say it's forbidden, and Shen QingQiu will be like, okay. But instead, I do feel Shen QingQiu's frustration when he first shows up on the scene, because Lo Binghe has made his entire, it's so crazy. He's made the entire home, his palace, look like the bamboo house in Qijing Peak. And Shen QingQiu is pissed off because he's like, you don't, like, you're trying to recreate something, but he's like, I'm not a prop. He's like, I'm not going to just sit here and be something in your dream realm that you can fawn over. Essentially, Shen QingQiu is realizing that what Shen QingQiu is saying is that he and Lo Binghe are not just characters. They are actual 3D people, which is so funny to say in a novel. But I think in this moment, Shen QingQiu, I wish he had connected that realization to Lo Binghe and how he feels about him, but I have a feeling that's going to come later on. But he's like, I'm not just something in your dreams. He's like, I'm right here right now. And he's like, I can't tell whether you're being sincere or insincere. He's like, 1 minute you're groveling at my feet, asking me if I need anything. The next minute you're slamming me up against the wall and forcing blood down my throat. He's like, you need to like figure out how to communicate me your thoughts rather than this back and forth. Like, how do you, and maybe I don't like saying that characters are bipolar because I don't want to associate like a disorder or a disease with a character, especially one that's portrayed in a villainous light. I don't like doing that, but I do wonder if Lo Binghe just has this, you know, he acts one way and then he turns on a dime and flips the switch, and Shen QingQiu's like, we need to figure this out. I need a code. I need something. But he's like, 1 minute you're having me feel sorry for you, and the next minute you're mad at me. He's like, there needs to be communication. There has to be, between these two, there needs to be some communication. And I thought we were getting there, and then we didn't get there. And I was like, and it was kind of Shen QingQiu's fault in part of this chapter set, because I'm like, Shen QingQiu, now you know he likes you. You have the opportunity to talk to him. Quit making this hard on us. And Lo Binghe is kind of the one that's in the dark in all this. He doesn't understand. And he's like, what do you think I'm going to do to you? And Shen QingQiu's like, I don't know, because I don't want to say anything because you might get the wrong idea. And of course, what's also problematic is that Shen QingQiu, because of Lo Binghe's actions in the past, like making him swallow the demon blood and using that demon blood against him, now he thinks that whenever he's trying to be intimate with him, he's just using him. And I'm like, well, that's a problem that they got to fix. So they've got to figure out how to solve that problem of how Lo Binghe is treating him. And he's like, well, my blood's not responding anymore. And he's like, you must have had a great encounter. And Shen QingQiu's like, well, are you going to make me drink it again? And he's like, well, you'll run if you drink it and you'll run if you don't. So I don't want to give you another reason to hate me. And Shen QingQiu's like, what do I do with that? Now, of course, now he's back in the original body that has drank his blood, so he could do that. The question is, Lo Binghe is, one thing that Lo Binghe needs to do is he going to keep trying to control Shen QingQiu? Something that is a problem with both of them is that they are both trying to use each other like characters in a book. Now, Lo Binghe doesn't realize he's a character in a book, because he's not, but he doesn't realize that that's what Shen QingQiu knows from the OG version. But just like how Shen QingQiu was trying to be kind to manipulate Lo Binghe into not killing him, Lo Binghe uses the blood inside Shen QingQiu to manipulate him to do what he wants. And it's not a bad thing either way. Neither of them need to be manipulating each other. They need to just talk it out, talk it through, right? And I did feel bad for Lo Binghe a little bit here, because he asked Shen QingQiu, he's like, is there anything you want? And Shen QingQiu's like, well, then I want you to leave me alone and go away. And Shen QingQiu feels bad saying it. He's like, I feel bad saying it, because I think there's a part of him that does like him. He's like, he feels bad, but I don't blame him. He's like, you took me away from everybody. You made a big scene. You did all this. He's like, why would I be happy about this? And that's when Lo Binghe starts this whole thing about, Shizun asked if I wanted to become strong. And Shen QingQiu's like, well, I thought the purpose was to protect people in becoming strong. And he's like, no. He's like, not everything you taught was correct. Only after you're the strongest can you keep the people you want securely in your palms. He's like, waiting for Shizun to come himself won't do. So now that I caught you, I'm not going to let you escape again. And that's the thing. It's like, Lo Binghe, he wants to keep Shen QingQiu to himself like they were in the past, but neither of them, they're not treating each other as fully rendered people. They're still treating each other like characters, and Lo Binghe is not taking into account all that Shen QingQiu is saying, and Shen QingQiu is not realizing how Lo Binghe has interpreted his words, and it's leading to a lot of miscommunication. So the system is happy to let him know where these points are, and there's all these points going on. So that this is important to note, right? We need to note this. as far as our B points, I guess we'll keep tabs up here. The B points right now are 1,330. So the Binghe points, the badass points, are there. You've removed the Laden with Landmines tag and unlocked the Rather a Lot of Things to Roast achievement. I don't know what Rather a Lot of Things to Roast means. I don't know if that means physically roasting it, like lighting it on fire, or if it means roasting as in like a communicative roast, like you make fun of somebody. I don't know what that means. So we got the landmines out of the way. That's great. And now a Rather a Lot of Things to Roast achievement. So the next mystery achievement unlock, I guess that's something he's already done. So the satisfaction points, they were 3,840, but we had the luxury edition. So with the luxury edition scene pusher, essentially we're back down to satisfaction. It was at 840, and then we added 500 whenever he impressed him, so now it's at 1340. Okay. And then the anger points are at 1,500, so he's mad at him still. Are at 1,500. The worst part is the heartbreak points. Those are still there. The heartbreak points are at 4,500. And I like that Shen QingQiu kind of gets sad at that. He's like, he feels kind of sad about the heartbreak points. He's like, is that my fault? Did I do something wrong? So I don't know if the luxury system update, if that was just to have the bed scene happen. I guess it was just the bed scene where he comes in and they end up on the bed. I guess that was the whole point, was it the luxury edition. I don't know, because it said small scenario pusher and it was luxury edition. So I don't know if the whole bed scene was just that luxury edition and what came of it, if that was the case, or if it's still extending and happening even now in the story. I'm assuming it was just that one time bed, 3,000 points wasted on a bed scene that ended up being an assault is not the best case scenario. But we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, for sure. But anyway, so Shen QingQiu is, living his life under house arrest. Now, I'm assuming this is actually what Lo Binghe is doing. He's uniting the northern border demons in Mo Beijun's territory, and Xia Waling is initiating her grand undertaking to backstab her dad. So I'm assuming that Shen QingQiu still believes, he still thinks that there is going to be some OG plot fulfillment. Not for long, though, I feel. I feel that's about to change exponentially. But I'm just kind of like, Shen QingQiu, the plot is changing. What are you doing? What are you talking about? So, and then he's like, Lo Binghe doesn't act like the characters in strange novels like Shen QingQiu's younger sister liked to read in his previous life. Now, it sounds like Shen QingQiu's sister is reading some real kinky yaoi. That's what it sounds like. Because when he was talking about like iron chains and blindfolded and gagged and stripped naked and beating, I was like, what is your sister reading? I feel like that's the negative stereotype that and cliches that yaoi gets, and I'm like, there's lots of really wholesome yaoi. I don't know, they're not all as kinky as you'd like to suggest there, sir. What are we doing? So that's interesting. But then there's the line, you'll never be unhappy once you learn to be satisfied with what you have. And he's like, bullshit. He's like, I'm not satisfied and I'm gonna make myself better. So he's like, he doesn't have Stockholm syndrome. I do like that. I do like that the story doesn't have Shen QingQiu getting Stockholm syndrome. He expects Lo Binghe to be better, but it is frustrating, I could see, from people that like Lo Binghe, because Shen QingQiu is so frustrated at this point, and he's like, I'm not gay, I don't know what this is, I don't like this, and then he's just kind of like, well, he says he's not gay, he says he's perfectly straight, but all of his actions so far in this book have kind of suggested otherwise, but he's convinced that he is. But he's so mad at the situation that it's almost out of spite. He's being hard to read. And I'm like, Lo Binghe is not somebody that analyzes things well. So you're just making things harder for you. I think it's also interesting to note that he's recruiting all of these he's recruiting all of these demons who are like, they're slayers and they're warriors, and he's making them like input bamboo and cook. But and Shen QingQiu, he kind of doesn't want to admit that he likes the food that he's eating, but it's exactly what he wants, and obviously it's made by Lo Binghe, and Shen QingQiu's just like, it's really good, and I hate it. So that part was all great. Then Shang Qinghua shows up to give Lo Binghe his sword back. So Lo Binghe, he got Zhu Ya fixed up and back to the clone SQ2 to make him happy, which is a good gesture. And he probably sent it with Shang Qinghua because he didn't want to like fluster Shen QingQiu, and Shen QingQiu told him he didn't want to see him, so he's listening to what Shen QingQiu said. So he did, you know, listen to him for the most part. Now the thing is, this sword is still with the clone, and now it's not with the original, so we've got that mess to deal with. So then Shang Qinghua shows up, just having the time of his life, just being like, oh, no, it's not, you know, you can't just mess around with whoever you please. If you messed around with me, well, it wouldn't end up well for me, and you don't think that that guy would let you off easy either. Shang Qinghua has a lot of sexual innuendos in his little step and communication in this chapter set, because at first he basically implies, he's like, hey, don't let Lo Binghe think that you're messing around with me or I'll end up dead like Gong Yizhao. Don't want that to happen, and then he'll be mad at you. So Shen QingQiu's like, well, what about our friendship? I thought we were homies, man. And Shang Qinghua's like, when did you think that? Which I'm like, well, fair. He's like, no. He's like, I had to. If I hadn't sold you out, he would have guessed. And he's like, I chose to save myself. And Shen QingQiu's like, fine. He's like, whatever. He like calms down pretty quickly and he's like, you know what? Fair. I get it. And he's like, I was ordered to deliver something to you. And that's when he gets Zhu Ya. And so, of course, Shen QingQiu is like, he loves his sword. He's come to love it over the years that he's kept it. And Shang Qinghua rubbing his hands and clicking his tongue, he's like, oh, he's like, I didn't think the storyline would warp to this point. It's truly remarkable. Shang Qinghua is having a great time with this. The author is having a great time with this. And I'm sure that the author really likes the fact of seeing his character like the item that he created. But Shen QingQiu is like, are you not angry that the protagonist you created is gay? And he's like, doesn't matter. He's not gay for me. And I'm like, I think one of my theories is that Shang Qinghua intended this to be a donmai originally. Intended for at least intended for Shen QingQiu's character to be gay originally. But as we're going to talk about with these chapters he's referring to in the OG versus the new story, I think that Shang Qinghua intended on Lo Binghe and Shen QingQiu getting together in the original novel. But as time went on and all of his commenters were like, oh, we want to see the girls and the guy get together, and Lo Binghe, screw the girls, he just wanted to appease the fans and the commenters, and so he kind of abandoned that plot line and just stuck with what they wanted, and it led to a lackluster story. Is what I think, because he's not bothered at all by the fact that Lo Binghe is gay. He doesn't bother at all. And I love that Shen QingQiu like gives him the middle finger and he's like, and then he's like, oh, well, you don't need to be so pessimistic. You have good prospects, fight for great future prospects. Those golden thighs, they're thick and sturdy, very reliable. I'm like, he is reveling in the fact that he's like, well, you know, Lo Binghe is a catch. Why are you mad, Shen QingQiu? And Shen QingQiu, I love it. He says, take your fucking golden thighs. He's like, at least those are just thighs. He's like, wherever I ended up between them. And he's like, well, that's even better. A man's most important object is between his thighs. Shang Qinghua, the audacity, the boldness that he has. I'm like, oh my God. And I love that Shen QingQiu is like, I don't want to like dirty my sword by killing you, but I'm really tempted to. And he's like, fine. He's like, since you've confessed for leniency, we're just going to move past this. We're not going to establish anything. The thing of it is, he doesn't really deny it. He's just kind of like, isn't this a situation? And Shen QingQiu's like, who cares? Or Shang Qinghua is like, who cares? So then he asks, he's like, what about Tian Longjun? He's like, do you establish any type of like settings in the story? What was going on? And Shang Qinghua seems kind of like, why are you asking? Like, he didn't expect that plot point to come up. And Shen QingQiu doesn't tell him about Zhu Xilong. Doesn't tell him about it. Doesn't want to mention it. He's probably suspicious of Shang Qinghua, but he's like, I just thought it was strange. You didn't write a whole thesis about him. You cranked out 1,000,000 words about another wife, but you could have serialized for 3 more years if you asked the dad. He's trying to play on airplane shooting towards the skies. Like, he's trying to play around with, like, stroking his ego a little bit, being like, well, why didn't you ask the dad and all this? And he's like, oh, well, you are clearly a faithful reader. And I'm like, good on you, Shen QingQiu. And he's like, I was writing from a grand outline where what's his face? Jean Long, I get his name right. His name is harder to, Tian Longjun. So in the OG, Tian Longjun was originally the final boss. But he's like, my computer died and I lost my outline and forgot a bunch of details. And I'm like, oh my God, you are useless, sir. I'm like, you didn't save it on like a drive? What are you doing? And he's like, and then everybody in the comment section said they wanted to see another plot line. So the one where Bing bravely conquered 100 flowers, or basically screwed 100 women. So they rather would see that. And he's like, how I suffered while writing the chapter of the 100 flower buds first mass blooming, and yet you still roast me. So it's like Shang QingQiu didn't want to write the Stallion novel originally the way that he did, but the comment section persuaded him to do so, right? He's like, so you went to the harem subplot and decided to leave the serious plot line full of holes? And he's like, well, as long as the readers are satisfied. He's like, all the maidens were bedded, the cannon fodder were killed, you know, pursuing another plot line would have taken a lot of work. He's like, I had to make a living. He's like, net writers don't have it easy. And I'm like, oh my God. Shen QingQiu's like, I have to make up for all of your shitty decisions. So basically, Shang Qinghua, he basically cut corners to satisfy readers. And I honestly feel that with a lot of stories that I read. I wonder if sometimes plot lines aren't pursued because the author is afraid that the audience is going to be upset. I think that a lot. Like, for me, especially since we're reading a donmai and we're talking about a relationship between two people of the same sex, there are a lot of series that I've read that the context is there. Like, the subtext is there. There's subtext, there's context. You're like, oh, these two characters clearly love one another and they clearly are a ship, but the writer doesn't have the cojones to make them a ship. And then people in the comments are like, well, I mean, how do you know? I was like, yeah, because it's right there in front of us. And then you find out later, after the series is finished, that the author was like, well, I kind of wanted to, but I didn't know about the reception. And I'm like, I think of Run with the Wind is a good example of an anime that the author came out later and was like, yeah, it's supposed to be a BL, but I don't know. And it just kind of got washed away or watered down. And it's just like, ugh. So anyway, I love that Shen QingQiu calls them out, and Shang Qinghua is like, I was forced against my will. In the original outline, Tian Longjun had purer blood than Bingay, and his martial power was stronger. And so he's just more all-around badass. And so he's also had a very deeply moving, tragic backstory. So he's very much a Gary stew. So this is the problem, is that he establishes the dad was kind of a Gary stew and had this tragic backstory, which we've kind of also given to Lo Binghe, but he's stronger than Lo Binghe. So that's a problem. And he's like, well, what would I do? He's like, the fans would have been very horrible if I had given that. And he's like, what if Tian Longjun is released and Lo Binghe can't defeat him? So Shen QingQiu is genuinely worried that Tian Longjun might beat Lo Binghe. And if I were Shen QingQiu, I would genuinely be worried about that, because I have a theory, and we're going to go over that theory as soon as we get through this part here with Shang Qinghua. And Shang Qinghua is like, okay, list out everything you planned but didn't write, the important things. And he's like, well, I don't know if it's important, but there's a part that has to deal with you, or what, with your, Shinju. Um, I was always embarrassed to say. And Shin was like, what is it? He's like, just tell me, I can take it. And he's like, well, I had a lot of ideas for his character. I wanted him to be this three-dimensional, well-rounded character. He's scum, he's wretched, but he has a reason to be scum, and he has a not scummy side, but the readers didn't buy it, and so they started griping their views, and so I turned him into a tropey and wretched asshole, but really, and that's when he's interrupted. So, what I feel is the case is I wonder if Shen QingQiu, his original character, Shinju, originally was similar to Lo Binghe. I wonder if this whole damn story was originally setting up Lo Binghe to get with Shen QingQiu, and when it didn't work, and that the dad, Tian Longjun, was going to be the biggest obstacle that the two of them have to face. So in my head, I'm thinking, like, what if Tian Longjun ends up being like the biggest threat in the story, and Shen QingQiu and Lo Binghe have to like come to a realization about one another and work together to stop him from destroying the entire realm. And it would kind of make sense if originally Lo Binghe and Shen QingQiu were supposed to have this like romance between one another, and that's what Shang Qinghua had originally written. But then all of the readers were like, well, why don't you have Lo Binghe have a wife and have like 6 wives and have like a harem? And he was like, okay, I'll do it because you want me to be, because it'll make me popular. I'll just go with it. And he ended up writing this harem story, but Lo Binghe's character in that harem story still kind of longs for Shen QingQiu, but in the OG, Shen QingQiu, he makes him an asshole, and so then that's why the two of them fight so much, and it leads them to destroying each other, because they don't come to terms with this unresolved sexual tension between them, and that's where we are now. Now, the only thing that can make it even more messed up is if Tian Longjun happens to have a crush on Shen QingQiu as well. Because why else would they go to try get the corpse and all of this? Why would Du Shilong suggest all this? I'm like, oh my god. There's just a lot of clues that I'm like, oh my god, what if Tian Longjun has a crush on Shen QingQiu, and Shen QingQiu's like, Lo Binghe, your dad likes me, and this is a problem. I don't know. It's hard to imagine what could happen, but, and then Shang Qinghua was like, well, let's do it later. I mean, let's chat later. And I know that it was like an innuendo, and he was just saying it out of panic. And he's like, shit, that was just, And so, of course, Shen QingQiu's mad, because he doesn't get to find out what it was that was being said about him. So, of course, he's angry and upset about it. And so Lo Binghe tries to, like, say the first thing to him, and Shen QingQiu's like, well, I don't want to dream, because in my dream, you try to get with me, and I don't want to do that. And he's like, none of the feelings I revealed were false. And Shen QingQiu, he is honest here. He's like, look, I don't know what's real and what not real. So he's like, you're not being real with me. Like, be real. And so Lo Binghe, of course, gets mad about that. And so he's like, well, you're only concerned being angry that I deceived him. But if I hadn't done so, then I wouldn't be able to speak a word to you. And so then he gets mad, and he talks about Shen QingQiu and all the times he tried to, like, get a hold of him and it didn't work. And Shen QingQiu's like, in his head going, I'm sure I already explained this. I was buried in the ground. You couldn't have gotten a hold of me. I'm sorry. Lo Binghe, I do understand that he's frustrated. He's frustrated that he has waited and done all these things for him, but with no response that's what he wants. But I think it's a really good lesson in that moment of Lo Binghe's like, well, I did all these things for you and you didn't do anything back for me. And Shen QingQiu's like, I didn't ask you to do those things for me. And then you were two-faced and weird. So again, Lo Binghe is under the assumption of, I gave you a favor, now you give me something back. And Shen QingQiu's like, that's not how this works. But Shen QingQiu is under the same assumption too. He's like, well, I'll be nice to you, so you be nice to me. And they both were operating under the system of let's trade favors And that's not how you build a proper relationship. And now it's all kind of crumbling away. And Shen QingQiu, I was mad at him when he said you really cling to your grudges. I'm like, because Lo Binghe's kind of being like, well, look, you deceived me twice, I deceived you twice. Wasn't that fair? And Shen QingQiu, I'm like, he shouldn't have said that you really keep your grudges, because that made him mad, and you knew it was going to make him mad, but Shen QingQiu was just pissed off at the time. And he's like, well, you wouldn't like me if I was really angry. And I'm like, oh no, where's this going? And he's like, I only cling to memories with you. And Shen QingQiu tries to get him to calm down. And he's like, well, you can always compose yourself, but I can't. And then he throws him onto the bed. Now, I do think that it is wrong for Lo Binghe to come at him when clearly Shen QingQiu doesn't want this. Shen QingQiu does not want to have these exchanges with you, and he's made that very clear. But then he kissed him in the woods, so it's like, what do you do? So Lo Binghe is all confused, thinking that Shen QingQiu wants this, and he's playing hard to get. And Shen QingQiu is like, I don't want this, but you're really forcing yourself on me, and this is wrong. So that's when he like fires at him. And of course the system's like, Lo Binghe likes this. You get satisfaction points of 500. And he's like, what? He's like, why? He's like, Lo Binghe believes this is Modao Zushi. And Shen QingQiu believes it's Heaven Official's blessing. We're coming at it from two different ways, right? And the moment Lo Binghe said, you can't kill me either way, I was like, does Lo Binghe know? Did Shang Qinghua tell him that he can't die? I don't know. And then Shen QingQiu says, you beast. And he's like, well, if you see me as no better than a beast, then I might as well live up to the expectations. And Shizun's like, oh my God. Now, in that moment, I was really worried because I thought it was going to go somewhere that was really dark. And I was like, if I'm going to support a couple in a story all the way to be endgame, it's got to be consensual. I don't like the idea of someone assaulting someone and Stockholm syndroming them into a relationship. I don't like that. That's not for me. So, and for this to be the main couple of the series, I was like, ooh, I don't like that. And it seemed like Lo Binghe was about to go further than what Shen QingQiu wanted, which would be assault. And I'm glad that in that moment, his soul migrates back to his other body. So I'm glad. I'm hoping that Lo Binghe figures out, like, oh shit, I did something I wasn't supposed. I'm curious if he will assume that this happening is a sign that he did something he wasn't supposed to. And I do feel bad for Lo Binghe in the sense that, like, he's now watched his lover shrivel and die in his arms. He's probably going to, like, freak out. And he says, I was just trying to scare you. Don't take it seriously. What's wrong? And I'm like, you done goofed. So I'm going to be really curious when he finds his way back to Shen QingQiu this third time. What are we going to do? My other thought is, if Shen QingQiu ends up in the same presence as Zhu Xilong and possibly Tianlong Jun and realizes that they're even worse, he might be like, you know what, Lo Binghe's not that bad. I might stick around him. Might try to get to know him. Might try to do things, And I think Shen QingQiu is genuinely worried that Tianlong Jun is going to try to kill Lo Binghe. I think he's worried about him. Because at the end of the day, regardless of Shen QingQiu trying to work through his own sexuality and figure out how he feels regarding that, I feel that he does want to save Lo Binghe and keep him safe, because he does still go back to that White Lotus. He still does go back to that original Lo Binghe that he cares for. So regardless of what he's become, he is going to want to protect him. So I feel like he's going to want to try to help him. And so in order to help him, he's going to have to try to work through and be like, okay, me being mad at you does nothing. You being mad at me does nothing. We need to talk through this and figure out how to defeat your dad, because that might be a problem. That might be a thing we need to work on. Right? So these whole blind corpses and the idea of the blind corpses and the breathing living candles, that is terrifying. The corpses, the blind corpses was so scary. I was like, oh no, 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 no. The description of them with like mushed giant eyeballs and everything. Nope. I really, it reminded me of a video game where you're going down like a zombie video game, or in like Legend of Zelda where the corpses just kind of like they kind of stagger towards you, and you just, as long as you avoid them it's fine, but if they see you they start getting faster. Like that shit freaks me out. Like I would be terrified to be in that situation. I also like how the system immediately reconnects with Shen QingQiu's body. Now, Shen QingQiu's body, when he got into the clone, it didn't immediately connect to him because Lo Binghe and then were separated. But now it connects really quickly. So I'm like, how does that work? Is it because of Tian Lanjun and the relation? I'm curious about that. We'll see. But he's like, oh, you've entered the advanced level plot scenario, the Holy Mausoleum. The plot hole filling quest has been issued. And he's like, shit. He's like, please rise to the occasion and take the initiative. And I like that Shen QingQiu doesn't want to do it, and then the system keeps telling him to, and he finally does. That's great. But yeah, the last breath candles. So that whole point is terrifying. And so he goes into a room where there's another coffin high up on an altar, and he tries to throw it open, but it won't budge. He tries to hit it again, and there's just like a deep thud, but it still won't move. And so he's like, can I please take shelter in here? And I like that he just talks to the coffin, like hoping there's somebody inside. And they're like, sure, do as you please. I wonder if it is his dad. I wonder if his dad, I thought his dad was buried in a mountain, but who knows? Maybe it's Zhu Xilong. I don't know. And so he's like, oh God, a corpse come to life. But I'm like, you asked him to come in there. And so he knocked a few blind corpses off the casket and jumped off the casket and sent a spiritual blast towards the ceiling. And he's like, he continued to try to blast the ceiling to collapse it and escape in the confusion and bury the corpses and this revived corpse or whatever through the rubble. But then he heard a hiss coming from outside the tomb, which I'm sure is going to be Zhu Xilong. So yeah, great job. Awesome. We're back again, baby! I'm really excited for volume 3, where we're already in the muck. It's crazy. I'm excited, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So, yay! In any case, I am excited to hear your comments down below. But next week we'll be looking at chapters 57 through 59, or pages 35 to 76 in the book. So quite a bigger section. So we still talked for a good long bit about this, so I'm pretty excited about it. But I'm excited to hear your comments below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back real soon with more Scum Villains self-saving system. Bye!